welcome to another episode of Diary of a Wannabe Comedian with me, Belle, a wannabe comedian. Where to start today? Let's start with Ricky Gervais, who's been in the news recently because he's in trouble. He's in trouble with Scope, who I think are a charity that support people with cerebral palsy. And they have taken umbrage, is that the right word? Taken offence on behalf of obviously the people that they support because Ricky Gervais used the R word, as they put it, i.e. retard. Now, I've listened to this part of Ricky's set and I think it might have been in some of his work in progress shows, but honestly I think it's very clever and I am not seeing the problem with it. I have never associated that word specifically with cerebral palsy. And the other reason I'm a little bit fed up, really, is because I'm going to go back and make it all about me. But then it's my podcast, so why shouldn't I make it all about me? But I'm going to go back to scoliosis, which impacts more numbers, quite frankly, than cerebral palsy does. Not that that's particularly relevant, but it does. And yet it's still up for grabs in terms of comedy and nobody bats an eyelid. And I've got live examples of this. As you know, I went to see, I think there was 5 comedians at the Roundhouse fairly recently. And out of those 5, 2 told scoliosis jokes, or should I say hunchback jokes. And the organisation that supports people with scoliosis, do you even know who they are? No, you don't know who they are, but you know who Scope is. You know what they do. And as I say, statistically, you should know who supports scoliosis. It's an organisation called SAUK, S-A-U-K, Scoliosis Association UK. And in my lifetime, I am aware of them kicking off once. And that was back in the 80s. And that was at BT because they had an advert which was, it featured Quasimodo talking about the bells, and why am I so ugly? And they kicked off and they managed to get that advert taken down. Other than that, you don't hear from them. And I am going to support it with statistics because I've actually done a bit of research on this. I thought there's no point in just coming to this podcast and mouthing off. But cerebral palsy, which is an awful condition, don't get me wrong, I'm not belittling it in any way, but it affects around 160,000 people in this country. That's out of around 67 million. Scoliosis, on the other hand, affects over 2 million people in this country. And of that, just over 200,000 will have to have treatments like me, i.e. surgery and traction and every other horrific thing that they did to me as a child. So it's serious stuff and it just gets on my nerves because we all sit silent while hunchback jokes and curved spine jokes and all the rest of it are told by perfectly healthy comedians. So yeah, Dylan Moran, Nish Kumar, they didn't have any issue at all with telling jokes. But anyway, that's it. I'm not going to moan anymore. I'm just making a statement. I personally don't think that anything that Ricky Gervais said was problematic because the word is not associated with cerebral palsy. Hunchback, however, is absolutely associated with scoliosis. So there you go, bit of food for thought. I would like to, what else? Well, I will end on something positive, but I have got to give you an update on my kitchen. Oh my God. So today was tiling day because they were supposed to do it Friday and I can't even remember what the reason was why it didn't get done Friday. Oh, the tiler had wisdom tooth problem. That's right. So he didn't turn up. Today, however, he did turn up and he was here for, I don't know, an hour. And I suddenly thought, oh, that's gone quiet. So I went out and it was like the Mary Celeste. The lights had been nicely turned off. Nothing had been touched, but the door was open and he'd literally just gone off site. And I'm not even going to bother you with the excuse I was given. But needless to say, I went ballistic. And that is not really like me. I'm fairly calm, but I went ballistic. And I went ballistic because I read somewhere, it was to do with being at work actually, that, you know, you should be even-tempered. You should be a nice person at work. You should absolutely treat people with respect. But every so often, if you want to be taken seriously, you have to lose your temper. In a relatively controlled way. I don't mean throwing windows out of chairs and things like that, but it is actually good for people to see you lose your temper because it does generate It's supposed to generate some reverence for you. Is that the right word? But anyway, that's the word I'm using. So it was quite amusing because I don't lose my rag like that. I just don't anymore. You know, it's just, I'm too old. But hey, I did my best that I could, and I think he got the message. So they are going to come back Wednesday, and they promised me the snags will be done Thursday. So my home should be back being my home by Thursday evening. Now I'm going to leave you on a little positive. I bought a book by Rick Rubin, and this is because I was listening to a podcast from Lewis Howes, my boy Lewis, and he was interviewing him, and he sounded really interesting. I get that he's a really big name, but I'd honestly never heard of him before. But I like the look of his book, and the opening quote is from Robert Henry, and he says, "The object isn't to make art, it's to be in a wonderful state which makes art inevitable. So come Thursday evening, I will be creating art." Much love and gratitude.